listening to Unfiltered with Mohammed, a podcast about personal growth and authentic leadership. If you're looking for tips on how to manage others, get ahead, and make your way up the corporate ladder, this is not the show for you. This podcast is about being of service to others, leading from the heart, and evolving into a better version of yourself. Each episode brings you motivated stories about unfiltered leadership and authentic leaders, those who involve others, use their influence to amplify diverse perspectives, and inspire teams to achieve collective results. If this sounds like you, keep listening. Hello and welcome to the Unfiltered podcast, and welcome to my unfiltered guest, Caroline Fernandes. Good day to you. Thank you very much for being my guest. And welcome. How are you?
Oh, it's such an honor to be on this podcast, sharing space with you. I love what you do, and I align with my heart. So I'm excited to be here.
I'm very excited to share this space with you. And I know it sounds cliche, but the honor really is mine. I've been following what you're doing. And we're going to get into this a little later. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself to my listeners. I know that your handle on LinkedIn and elsewhere is Caroline Cares. For a while, I thought that was your last name. I was like, okay, awesome. And then I realized it's because you really do care. That's part of your persona. And so, without further ado, I'd like for you to explain who you are and who's the person behind the persona.
Wow, that can go in a million ways, but I think that more and more, I think I'm embracing my humanness in this lifetime. And I believe that I've known really early on that I had a purpose and a mission. I was in my early teens when I understood, but sometimes there requires a certain maturation, I would say, of filtering down of things that one needs to go through in order to build the necessary skills for that vision to see the light. Who am I? I'm a human. I'm a human exploring this lifetime, hopefully being able to open my heart and radiate love that comes from the universe, and then also being able to serve and support others likewise.
And I have no doubt you talk as if this is a future tense, and I sense that this is something that's already guided what you've been doing and what you are doing. When I listen to you, when I engage with your posts and what you share about your personal life and your professional life, I have no doubt that the community that you've built and the change that you're bringing, you talk about addressing the elephant in the room. And so I know you talk about things that may make us feel uncomfortable, but you help us discard the discomfort so that we can actually get to the core that really matters. You talk about, you approach what I do as well, leadership development and talking about diversity and inclusion, but you approach it with such a cryptic internalization. It's almost mystical. When I listen to you and I engage with you, I can feel there's this sense of mysticism, this sense of, you talk about becoming, you talk about the things that we don't necessarily see because we have to go deeper to get it. And I think that's such a novel approach to understanding who we are, because we're not just what is on the surface. We are so much more than what is on the surface. And you peel that back. And when you do, and you talk about removing the layers, and when you do, I think this is where you help people understand that we really do come from a same source, right? I would like to ask you, what drives what you do? Where does this all come from?
So I want to backtrack a bit to what you said. I'm reminded of Deepak Chopra's book, Synchro Destiny, where he shares that from one human to another, we can never fully touch and fully understand another human being. It's just not humanly possible. There are parts to someone else that just remain as is. And by understanding that, we can also understand that there are parts within us as well that we have not discovered about ourselves. And I believe maybe this might sound mystical and esoteric, and that's from our limited small mind. We need to package everything. We need to make sense of everything, because making sense of it from our mind space allows us to feel safe. But growth happens beyond that, in the unknown. And so I have always been completely enamored by what has not been said in a conversation. And I think that meditation, I think coaching has allowed me to not just feel into what you just said, those unstated parts of ourselves that we're not aware of, and even in the collective, but also be able to discover the magic in that. And I believe personally, as well as through my work, we have a lot of shame, we have a lot of embarrassment around parts of our life experience. And once we start to look at those parts, like really look at them, and spend time with them in love, and spend time with them in an appreciative inquiry mode, we can start to release the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment. And that's how we up level. I think ancient wisdom teaches this so beautifully. We talk about the chakras, we talk about kundalini yoga. I know the Chinese talk about how to use and direct chi. And what is all this? It's all energy. And to the point around things like hiding parts of ourselves. Very often, I think we think that we are hiding parts of ourselves from others, but actually we're hiding it from ourselves. We're denying it. And the more we do that, the more we experience pain, physical pain, like illness, stress, mental stress, lack of sleep, and all the other things where, that a time like COVID has sort of, opened up. It's like this big, huge wound, and we're looking at it, but it's us. It's us. And so my work is about doing that work, looking at wounds, being able to acknowledge them with love, understanding that they're necessary, because a lot of times, our wounds are teachers. They're the wisest places to go to, and to sit down and just kind of be silent and allow it to emerge. We've come to a point where we have so much distraction, consumerism, technology, and everything else that robs us of our connection with source within us. And all of my clients know this. They keep coming back time and again, time and again, and they keep saying, a lot of times through the work, it feels crazy. It feels like, I remember one client telling me that he felt like he was in a washing machine. It was, that's the only word that he used. And sometimes it is like that. And it can be scary because, you spoke about the ego before we got on live, right? The ego, the false self, tries hard to stick around, and it does all these things so that we don't grow, we don't evolve. And now more than ever, I think for leaders, business owners, people working together, personal relationships, we are being challenged in a good way, in a powerful way, to stay. This time is saying stay. Stay in the house, get comfortable with who you are, get comfortable with people around you. It's hard.
Yes. it's painful, I think. And as you talk, and I know the difference in time zones. So you're ending your day. I'm starting my day here in Canada. You're in India, and I want to come back to that reality that you are in a place that I haven't visited yet, but I hold as mystical. I hold, when you talk about yoga and chakras, and you talk about energy, I'd be remiss not to identify with a certain part of what I understand as India, and without the vision that we have put through our understanding of looking at a country through the eyes of a Westerner or a stranger, right? I mean, you living within it, but to deny that there is this certain sort of energy that is inherently available to people who are growing within this culture, it becomes a lot more accessible. And when you're talking to people who are distanced from going into the home, going into the house, feeling more comfortable, I think when you're surrounded with that energy and surrounded with that environment, it's a lot easier for you to recognize it. But for people who are distanced from it, and I talk about Western here, so whether we're talking in Europe or in the States or America or here in Canada, and I find it such a prevalent when I'm having conversations with clients or friends, I talk about our Western mentality, I talk about capitalism, I talk about, and I don't judge it. I just talk about that. I think the challenges that we have and that we're finally recognizing, and it's a reckoning, and it is tied to this racial awareness and the racial reckoning that we're going through. It's because we've always embraced that power lies within the masculine, it lies within the alpha male, a patriarchal system that demands and commands and imposes. And when you speak, there is such a power of the feminine. And here I'm not talking about male, female. I'm not, I know you get into the gender discovery in your work. I'm talking about the masculine and the feminine within us, and the need for us to come to peace with the masculine and the feminine. So when you speak, I see, I feel, you talk about feeling, I feel the feminine transcend. And I think the reason we don't have a lot of women, now I talk gender, a lot of women, females in roles of leadership, in the proverbial corner office, right? It's because men have generally walked into the role where they've only skimmed the surface. They've allowed their leadership style to be the dominant, I tell you what to do as I say, not as I do. And all of a sudden, it's okay to stay above the surface. But you talk about pain, you talk about the fact that we never immerse ourselves in that knowing and becoming. And so we're always at the surface. And when you go through life just skimming the surface, it becomes difficult and painful because you never get into the reality of who you truly are. And yet, when you speak, you take away those veils. You take away the veils of our identification with a particular gender that limits us to what we think we need to be. And you strip it away to let us get into the house and feel safe and start that conversation. And as you were talking, and I know I'm going on here, but you were making me feel this. And I've kind of known this, but I felt it today with a certain clarity that I haven't felt before. I truly say that. And you help that. So now I'm going to come to your superpower here. I want to talk about why I felt it was just so easy to see with clarity and feel it from the way that you've explained it. How do you see this transformation with the people that you talk to, with your clients?
So my work, I believe that I embody my work. I believe that I've never felt safe in my body. And in order to find your voice, in order to express yourself, you talk about masculine energy, and anyone understanding the power of integrating feminine and masculine also understands that being grounded in one's body is really important. The grounding is from the masculine, and the feeling of freedom and a sense of creativity comes from the feminine, the nurturing part. And so that they're needed together, which is why feeling safe, has been something that I had to work on. I had to work on huge abandonment wounds, which I think I'm still unpacking, but I've done a lot of work through it, and then be able to help others do likewise. And a lot of people don't understand this because we live in a world where we are operating from our minds. We have disconnected from our bodies. We don't know when we're tired. We don't know how much to eat. We don't understand posture and hydration. And we don't understand the connection of all of this to up level to productivity and performance. We think it's woo, we think it's fluff. It's not. There is a lot of research, right from Harvard to some of the best universities and medical research centers, to now start to show how famous basketball players have started to embrace this in the US, understanding the value of honoring your body. And feeling safe is one of the most fundamental things that we have forgotten. So, to your point, I help people remember. I help people remember who they are, because it's not like we don't have it. It's just that we don't know. We have, all these things right from childhood that we've been told. Do this, you're this. Do that, you got to do this to get there. And it's always from the paradigm of have. If I have this, then I am that. But this paradigm is you have to be and then do. So that is a shift from have, do, be, to be, do, have.
Wow. It really is through action and not through possession. Amazing. Caroline, tell me about your community of courage and vulnerability. So I know that this is part of a book that I believe it's a book that you've collaborated with others, but it's also a community, and it's also a mindset, or maybe I should say a heart set. So tell me about that, what you do and how it impacts you personally, and how you bring that level of self-awareness to your conversations with the people that you help and the people that you empower.
So there are two, maybe three things that I want to kind of bring into what you've just introduced. The first is a conversation that I had a couple of weeks ago with a cohort from a London-based university, and I was talking to them about an upcoming project which you already know about as well. And someone from the cohort, they're really young, they're about 19, I think, but I loved the power in the room. I believe that the millennials and Gen Alpha are going to teach us a thing or two about who we are. I see that in my son, the way he demonstrates just his soul so confidently. And this person asked me, how do you create a safe space? Like, you can talk about it, but how do you create a safe space? And you're talking about community. So now I'm going to go on to the second piece. So when around the time that my son was born was a really, really hard time for me personally. And it really shook me, but it was an earth shattering phase that allowed me to think of, people like Oprah. I've always been super inspired by Oprah because I believe that she uses her story as strength, not as a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And she was able to turn that around to empower herself and then radiate that for people to feel that they're not alone. They don't need to lose hope and they have to keep going. And I said, that's me. I identified with those things in her. And I said, I want to do that. I want to be that. And I want to do that for other women who have lost their voice, women who don't know that they have a voice. And that was the time I promised that I would start something for other women who have lost their way, can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And many moons passed since then. And only in 2014, which is now 7 years ago, is the time that I transitioned out of Hewlett Packard. That was my last corporate job. Everything again had come to a point where my whole identity was ripped apart in 2014. And that's when I said, no more excuses. This is it. I have to start this community, this thing. I didn't even know what it was. I could see something in my mind. And, I pray, I meditate, and I was given this message in a dream of a word. You asked me what that was. Vibha, Vibha, is a Sanskrit word. I don't speak Sanskrit. I wasn't born and brought up in India. And the long story short, in the dream, someone's telling me that my home is Vibha, the light at the end of this muck of a road that I saw in my dream. And when I woke up, I Googled it and I realized Vibha is a Sanskrit word which means cosmic light. And I thought that was so powerful. I said, wow, I can't turn this down. This is something here. So that's what I call the community. It started out, it was, I think, a dissected version of a 2010 mission that I knew that I have to create, which I'm currently doing. And becoming you is an evolution of that expression. I think we are all expressing ourselves, whether we know it or not. Even our silence is an expression. And the community, my work, in coaching, I think these are sacred spaces. I believe they're sacred spaces. And I always wanted to kind of write my book. And so in 2019, when I started to do that, I started to realize that because a sense of belongingness is so important for me as an inclusion champion, and listening has been something that I didn't learn as a child, and that I had to unlearn a lot of beliefs around respect, around listening as an adult. Inclusion has been very important. And then I thought I'd be lying to myself if this book was just all about me. It's not. And so this book is layered. And so I said, I'm going to invite in people that I know, people whose work and life I honor as much as they do me, into this conversation, for them to open their hearts up likewise and talk about their stories. What happened? How did they get to realize that they need to do this work? And through that, I remember Anuradha, our editor, said, she read all the stories. She came back to me and she said, this isn't enough. I need to feel you. And I was like, I have shame around some parts of my story. And I don't know if I can bring that out. And she said, your mission is to inspire other humans who are going through similar things. And I sat back and said, I would be doing a disservice through this book if I were hiding parts of myself because of my shame. And so the book has been extremely healing for me, because I had to go into memories that I thought I had forgotten, and which have been very painful for me, but also very, very liberating, because I went there and I sat with it. And I've shared so much of that in this book. And then the authors came back. So Joy and Brian came back, and they wanted to, we were talking and we said, this can't be enough. So the book is just the first step. We want to open this up. We want to have and invite readers to look within themselves and look at places that maybe they've not visited in a while, or maybe never, and then invite them into a conversation. And over the last couple of sessions that we've had, they have been so powerful. I think I've cried in every session. It's been so it just touches me that the stories can trigger more heart. Just when you think, you're done, it's over, there's more heart coming through. There's more feeling. There's more, of breakthroughs. I have goosebumps while I say this. And so the intention is to remind ourselves and each other that we're human, and even in business, it's all about this connection. It's all about the vulnerability and about understanding that it's okay. Wherever we are, we're okay.
So Karen, how do you get people who aren't okay, people who find it very difficult to embrace these vulnerable parts, maybe even look to them as superficial, or they don't exist, or they mock them, right? And here I'm thinking of, we all start from a place of ignorance because we just don't know, right? When we come into this world, we forget what we may have experienced before we came into this being and into these bodies. And when we grow, we don't actually grow and learn more. I think we start forgetting more of who we are because we start packing on to our existence and our persona what we think we are, and everything that's so external and what we own. We become our possessions as opposed to our being. And so we grow up believing that we are this superficial persona that, we don't dive deep into who we are, and we allow ourselves to be exalted, and then ignorance becomes arrogance, right? And how do you have a discussion with, and no disrespect, because I've been there, I get there sometimes, even in my process of knowing, but how do you take that arrogance and strip away that ego and tame it so that it can enter the room with you and have the discussions that allow you to become who you need to become? How do you make people feel comfortable doing that?
So, I believe that on a personal level, on a one-on-one level, a soul, a human, a person can only be transformed when they are ready. And what that means, that readiness could mean anything from adversity, loss, struggle, which usually is, a place where the soul starts to stir. Yet at the same time, if we are in a room, and it's usually easier to identify someone else's shadow but not our own. And so these days, and it's a really hard process because I get triggered all the time as well. There are times when the whole meditation and coaching goes out the window, but because I've been practicing for about 8 years, I'm able to come back into myself, center myself so much quicker, and with observation as a role. But I say all that to say this: compassion. I think that understanding that I'm no more or no less than another human, that I'm capable of anything and everything that another human is capable of, frees me of the need to change someone else. And this is a very, very hard thing to do, because people very close to me, I might be able to see energetically what's going on, even without them saying anything, and feel into it. Yet, the idea of rescuing someone is actually doing a disservice to them. We can hold space for, and this is my belief, we can hold space for whatever is unfolding. We can, lead by example. But the biggest feeling that comes through is compassion, understanding that it's okay. And it's very hard. It's a very, very hard place to be.
You know what? I just appreciated so much in what you said. We talk about getting there. We talk about our journey of arrival. We're always taught, go to school, get good grades, then go to school again, get a good job. then finish school and get a good partner, then, you know, start your family, right? We're always taught about these destinations. And unfortunately, we arrive at these destinations thinking that they're final, but they're transitions. And, you know, and I speak from the sense that our destinations become the things that we own, whether they're the jobs or the degrees or the homes or the cars or the amount of money we have in our pockets. And we're taught that these are the final destinations. And we don't recognize that the journey and the becoming, the ongoing becoming. Because, you know, when you said triggers, and I still, you know, and I don't think you used the word struggle, but for me, a trigger, you know, liberates that struggle. And struggle can be ugly, it can be powerfully, it could powerfully take me away from where I'm trying to get to and hold me back, right? And I mean, triggers sometimes when you don't recognize them and then try to make peace with them, they overcome you. And I think it just, the ripple effect is you become less of who you need to become. Where I'm going with this is many of us believe that we get to a certain age or stage and we've arrived. And, you know, in our becoming, we're always going to have those triggers, whether we're 20, 40, 60, 80, right? And they're okay. The triggers are okay. What you said and what really resonates is the reason we practice these skills, the reason we get on a bike and get better at riding the bike and then go hands-free is our reaction time and then our response time becomes a lot more controllable. It, you know, to use a word, it's a quicker process. It's a process that happens more quickly. So I don't get triggered and then remain in my unknowing and my disdain and my arrogance for days or months or years. I recognize my trigger, I can name it, and I can say, wait a minute, this is not healthy. This is not where I need to go. And so the reason I share this is I'm somebody who's very impulsive. I'm learning to become better. And I want people to know, I want the listeners to know that it's okay. You know, no matter how successful, I'm unquoting here, you think you are, no matter how much you've experienced, no matter what your age and your expertise, you will always have a state of becoming where you will be triggered and you will behave in ways that maybe are lesser than who you think you are. And that's okay. But where you grow and you become more wise is when you can take that window of reaction, turn it into a window of response, and take the trigger and bring it narrower so that you can right or wrong faster. You can make something good. Your learning process, your learning journey is more immediate because, you know, we all deal with one thing here on this earth, and that's the finite reality of time. I don't have 2 years to react to a trigger. I can't get in a fight with a sibling and then react and lose my temper and then let it go for 2 years before I right that wrong. I can't have an outburst at work with a colleague and let that conflict persist and grow and actually eat away at me, right? I need to recognize those triggers and right or wrong. What I'd like to ask of you, with the people that you talk to and help them to uncover who they are, what's one thing that you can share with my listeners that can help them recognize the triggers better and make the reaction or the response time more beneficial to their healing time?
I think it's a process. I think, you know, a lot of times I get people asking me, tell me something that I can do to fix it right now. And I tell them that I can give you a quick fix solution, but the work is transformational. And, you know, it's like, I was just talking to a client who signed up today, in fact, a few hours back. And I was explaining to him, he asked me, you know, because I've brought up two different parts of my life, which one will get impacted first? And I said, you know, we've been conditioned to believe that our personal life and our professional life are separate, because that makes us feel safe. When we think we can compartmentalize, but the reality is that's not true. If you have something going on in your life, and how you will know it, to your question, is the way you feel in that moment. If you're not at peace, if you're stressed, if you're thinking about it all the time, if you aren't focused in the moment, if you not medical advice, but if you get sick a lot, like especially repetitive colds and things like that, a lot of this, and I'm just sharing this at a very, very high level, will go back to your breath, will go back to your the gut of your health of your gut. And a lot of people will know this, but a lot of people won't, that your brain and your gut have a similar structure. And there is consciousness that they have come to realize is aware and alive in your gut, just like your brain. And now also in your heart, there are neurons around your heart, which is why when you're meditating and you're doing inner work, a lot of times they will tell you to get a gut detox, a cleanse, primarily because when you eat less, your intuition is heightened, the theta state that is necessary for you to tap into your intuition. And this is real stuff. You can't make this up.
This is the chakras that.
That's a part of it. Yeah, that's a part of it as well. And so where I'm going with this is um, emotions. Let's take something as simple as your emotions. Your emotions are energy, right? And the energy that's trapped in your body. Like through the work, we look at where is love. So where, if you've got some discomfort in your chest, or maybe in your face or your neck, and that's usually connected with a memory, but you don't know that. And so in the present moment, when you're triggered, that subconsciously takes you into that memory, and you're acting out from there, from that space, because you haven't healed. And so to anyone who is interested in doing the work, I think the first thing to recognize and acknowledge is that this isn't an overnight process. It cannot be. One step at a time. If you're in the moment and something is happening to you, at least you believe it's happening to you and not for you, I would suggest you slow down and take some nice deep breaths. Just breathe into your body and relax. Allow your body temple to just relax. And the second thing is that there are a lot of practices, and these aren't mental. My work isn't about free association the way therapy is. It's about getting into the body and understanding how to release memories, trapped emotions, bad energy that's holding you stuck and holding you back. But that's a short answer.
And that's a powerful answer, and I don't know if you noticed that as you were talking about breathing, it just came so natural that I had to pause. And we talk about compartmentalization, putting ourselves into pieces, and we have to be careful here. The society where I grew up believes in the dominance and the superiority of the brain or the mind over the rest of the body, and looks at the inferiority of the heart, which is tied to emotions. Amazing, right? What pumps and keeps us alive, and pumps and feeds the brain. So the emotions is the energy that keeps us alive, but we hold it as superior, as inferior. And mind you here, and I think you can understand this as well, because the brain is higher, the heart is lower. And now you look at the gut, and even the word gut, and when you said it, I had to fight hard not to recognize this basin where things are piled and food is ripped and separated, right? I had, when I can appreciate that my gut is not only a place where my nutrients are meeting and mixing and then separating, and what feeds me and keeps me alive is being, it's a process of deliverance and a process of taking things away to give me the things that I need. And that's what feeds the intuition. And I know, as somebody who fasts regularly, I know just how astute I am when I'm fasting. And people say to me, "Oh, don't you get tired?" I said, "No, like my brain is just so on when my gut is so off." Right? Because I'm not focusing, we have an expression in Arabic, when you focus on your stomach, you forget what's in your brain. And so here's the thing, and again, through my spiritual beliefs and my meditation, when I bow to the earth, now what is normally above my heart is now below my heart. Not only is that physically beneficial for me, but to serve the ego that is always elevating my sense of knowing through my brain, it's taking that brain, taking that spirit, that mind, and putting it below the heart. And it's subjugating me to something that's more powerful, and that's understanding the emotion and the source of where that emotion is. So, as you speak and as you say that it's so important for us not to rip apart the different parts that make us whole, but it's more recognizing. And that's part of the becoming. That I could have these conversations with you for hours, and this only makes me realize why I need to get on these calls with you more often. But I want to thank you today for your insight. I want to thank you for the journey that you've allowed me to awaken to on this beautiful day. We have a lot of snow here in Canada today, but you've grounded me. You've grounded me. You've given me a certain amount of peace and comfort and happiness. And I think in these conversations, that is probably one of the goals, is to find that peace and internal happiness, because it can ground us. It can help us become more of who we need to become, recognize who the real you within each one of us is. And that's part of the courage and the vulnerability, I think, is to recognizing who we need to become, is who we already are, if we can just listen and find that peace to find ourselves. I want to thank you today. I want to thank you so much for sharing, for your insight, for your spirit, and for the love that you've shared with me and my listeners today. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored. You have so much power and grace in your energy. You just exude it, and I feel you on so many levels. I'm so honored to be invited into this conversation by you, and to appreciate all of your viewers as well. One last thing, as a request to everyone watching in, is if you can make the time to walk up to a mirror and just look into your own eyes and just stop whatever you're doing and just say out loud to yourself, "I love you." And let me go further to say that for many, many people, including clients, they break down. It's a very hard process, but keep going. It's a very powerful technique. Look into your eyes. Don't look at your face, just look into your eyes deeply and take yourself in. And on that note, thank you so, so much. Big love.
Blessings to you. Thank you so much, Caroline.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Unfiltered, the show about authentic leadership and personal growth. Like what you heard? Click subscribe, share it, and tell a friend about it. And don't forget to leave a rating.